So stop me if you heard this before. You want to start a YouTube channel, or the idea of being some sort of content creator is really appealing to you. But maybe, just maybe, you feel a little bit weird about filming yourself, or maybe there's something else that's really holding you back. Well, first things first, I don't really like to throw around the term impossible too much, but it's impossible for you to make, say, 100 videos and your 100th video to be worse than your first video. If you go back on my channel and look, the first video I ever made, which was really potato quality, as I've said so many times in the past, the videos that came after that and the videos I make today, they're nowhere even compared to that low of quality. So you are definitely going to get better over time. But another thing a lot of people might question is, what type of equipment do you need to start, and how expensive is it to start a YouTube channel? And it makes a lot of sense, especially if you want to delegate all these tasks out to other people, such as video editing, scripting, filming, whatever the case may be. It's very likely, and also depending on the equipment you get, it's not unheard of for channels to cost up to tens of thousands of dollars a month to maintain. So in this video, what I really want to do is I really want to break down all the money I've spent so far on getting this podcast and channel up and running, and kind of show you guys the equipment I use, so that way if you want to start a channel of your own, you have that option. You can either take the equipment I use and buy it for yourself, or maybe you can look at something better, or whatever fits in your price range.
I want a big car with the top back and shopping bags filled to the brim in the back seat. I'm going fast, spinning my wheels, keeping it real, feeling the feelings I feel.
Alright, so from the top, we're going to kind of go through some of this stuff, and I want to apologize actually in advance that this video might not have the best audio quality. I'm a little bit nasally. I was sick this past week. I originally wasn't even going to make this video, but I am feeling a lot better today, so I decided to go and film this, but we're just going to see how it comes out. So first, we're going to go through kind of like the big things, like the camera, the editing software, the lens I use, that type of stuff. Then we'll go through some of the smaller things that I use, and then we're going to go through kind of some of the things that I really want to buy for the channel, in kind of both over the short term and the long term. So the first thing that I use for this channel, and one of the first investments I made on this channel, which I cannot show you because I'm using it to film right now, is the camera. So personally, as of right now, and I do want to upgrade this in the future, but I use the Canon 80D. I was using a camera before this. It was actually my sister's camera. If you have been following me a really long time, and you go back on the early days of the channel and you see kind of those videos that weren't really in focus and they were a little bit all over the place, it was me kind of filming just in like a corner in my room. That was with my sister's camera. It didn't really have any autofocus, so I knew I had to upgrade it, and I'm very, very happy I upgraded with this. But this camera, and it came with a bundle. It came with, I believe, a tripod that I don't use because I use this tripod I use now. It came with a couple of different lenses. It came with a couple of, like a few different items that I really honestly don't use, but I got it on eBay, and that whole bundle was $610. I'm personally a big fan of buying things on eBay. I really like it because you're essentially getting used things that are a lot of the times just as good a quality as if you buy them new on Amazon. And if I know what I'm buying, I try to buy them secondhand, because even if it comes to me broken off of eBay, I can open a claim and eBay will insure me and give me my money back. But that's just my own personal preference. If I don't really know what I'm doing, a lot of times I'll pay a little bit of a premium or a little bit of extra money and buy it on Amazon, or I'll go to a store. So that way I have the freedom to return it if I buy it. I'm like, I really don't need this. I really don't like it, or whatever the case may be. But I really like this camera. I do want to upgrade to another camera in the nearest future, which I'm going to talk about at the end of the video, but I would like this and I would recommend it. The only thing I really don't like about this camera is the frame rate only goes up to 60 frames per second, so I can't really shoot too many slow-mo shots or anything like that because it just comes out all choppy. And if anyone's ever done any sort of video editing or really put together anything in slow-mo, you know you really need to be shooting in that really high frame rate for it to look good. So that's the one thing I really do not like about this camera. But other than that, I love it and I would recommend it. Second big item up on this list, which I also can't show you right now. I'll see if I can kind of throw a different lens on there in a little bit and throw a little bit of B-roll over here so you guys can see the size of this item, and that is the 18-35mm lens. I love this thing. I have literally no complaints about it. Literally nothing. I did go the Amazon route with buying this one because I am a little bit unfamiliar with lenses and I didn't want to buy the lens and have it be something I didn't really like or something I didn't want to use, but I love this thing 110%. My friend Nick and my friend Dave both recommended this to me for a very, very long time. I do not regret buying this lens at all. It was a little on the more expensive side, but really all camera equipment's going to be on the expensive side. You can only get so many deals, but this lens I also bought in a bundle off Amazon. It came in a backpack and a couple of other different things. It came with a little handheld tripod type thing that I don't ever really use, but it does come in handy sometime if I try to get like a shot on the ground and I need to just elevate the camera a slight bit, but that was all included. And that entire pack cost me $730. So that actually cost more than the camera itself. But again, I really love it. I would really recommend it. If you have any sort of Canon and you want to take your camera quality to the next level, it will actually really up the quality. It really has. All those shots where you see kind of like my face or my body focused and the background's kind of blurred, that's because of this lens. It's really up the quality. Maybe you guys haven't noticed, but I definitely have. The third thing up on this list that I use and that I bought is Final Cut Pro. Now, I absolutely do not think this is necessary. I 100% think that, especially when you're first getting started, you can just use iMovie and the quality is gonna be pretty good, because when you first start making YouTube videos, you're not really gonna know what you're doing anyway, so it might not make sense to just blow a few $100s on Final Cut Pro. I did, but I also I was one of those people that just wanted to invest the money up front. But if you're on a really tight budget, absolutely do not feel like you need to buy Final Cut Pro. I know some people use Adobe Premiere, and that's kind of like a topic up for debate, which one's better. I love Final Cut. I've done all my editing in Final Cut. I know tons of YouTubers that do tons of editing in Final Cut. Matt Diavelli uses Final Cut Pro, and he actually was able to edit and produce an entire movie, like a documentary that's on Netflix, in Final Cut Pro. So it's definitely a high quality software, but for this I paid about $300. And yes, that might be a little expensive to some people for an editing software, but I really love it, and it's a one-time fee. You gotta pay it and you're done. It's not a subscription. I would really recommend it. If you have the extra money to blow, you will not regret it. You can render in 4K. It's absolutely, I love it. No regrets about that purchase at all either. Next up is my drone. So all those shots you see me of, trees, skyline, water, everything in the sky, that it all comes from this baby right here. And I personally use the Mavic Pro. I know they do have newer models out of this. I know they just came out with the 3, but I really love this thing. I talked to my friend Marvin. There was a couple I was considering getting, and he recommended this one. He said, get a used one and you won't regret it. It's honestly just as good a quality. I can't compare it to the 3, even though that just came out, but I really do love this thing. I enjoy flying it. I enjoy using it. It gets really cool, cinematic shots, and you can shoot it at a high frame rate, so you can slow it down if you need to. I think it shoots up to, if I'm remembering correctly, 120 frames per second, which really helps out that slow-mo when you can shoot in that high frame rate. I almost did crash it one of the very first times I flew it, but that's besides the point. But my friend Marvin did say, you guys saw him on the podcast before, so if you don't know who he is, you can go check him out on there. He's really into crypto. He's a very good photographer. I am in awe at his color grading. It's absolutely fantastic. But for this, I paid about $650, and then on top of that, I also got these cases, which were not sold with it. I did get this on eBay, but these cases were about 20 bucks, so we'll call it $670. And I know, like I said, they do have newer models, but at the same time, this is much more affordable than the Mavic Pro 3, which is about $3-4 grand right now. It just came out, so I would really recommend this, especially if you're new to droning per se. Now, moving on to some of the smaller things I use for the channel, I'm gonna kind of group a lot of them together and go through them kind of quickly, because some of them I don't really use too much anymore, or some are just really small, cheap items, and I don't feel the need to give a full review on them because they're only a couple of dollars. Starting off with this external microphone. This was the first one I bought. This is the VXR10. This is honestly a piece of shit. I hate it. I would not recommend it. This was about $40, $40 or $45, I believe. I think it was, I'm almost positive it was $40, but I bought this. I really don't like it. It picks up a lot of background noise, a lot of static. I really do not like this. I would not recommend it. I mean, if you're first getting started and you want to give it a shot, I mean, if that's really all you can afford, it'll probably get the job done. But if there's like any sort of wind, or if there's any truck running by or whatever the case may be, it's really gonna pick up all that noise, and it's really not that good. That last video where I filmed at the park of me going down the slide, if I had to use this microphone with that really loud, annoying noise in the background, if you watch that video, you know what I'm talking about, it honestly would have come out so bad, because there's no way you would have been able to hear me talk at all. So I would not recommend this. I don't like it. And yeah, what I currently use is, I just got this, is I currently use this Rode mic. This was about $80, $85, I'm pretty sure. I really like this thing. It, obviously, when I film it in an empty room, there's a little bit of an echo unless I'm standing like right next to it, but that's gonna just come, I guess you can say, especially with something like this. But when I'm outside filming stuff, like say when I'm at the park or when I'm at, you know, some place like a restaurant, or maybe I'm in the grocery store filming, it really picks up that audio quality really, really well. I really like this. I would recommend it. I do want to upgrade to a different one, which is a couple $100. I'm not sure exactly the name of it off the top of my head, but I've got a couple of friends that have used this in the past, and yeah, no complaints about that so far. I also really like having this because unlike this lav mic, which is actually a lav mic that has a wire, it's not a wireless lav mic. I don't have to, if I'm filming somewhere outside the house, I don't have to worry about, you know, untangling that wire, constantly dragging it around, you know, opening it up, like wrapping all that wire up. I don't like doing that. So this lav mic was, completely changing topics here, this is about $10. It's really cheap. It's not that good, but if you're just filming in your house, it's really not that bad. It'll get the job done. I don't personally like it. I don't think it comes out with the best audio quality, but again, if you're first getting started on a really tight budget, I would recommend it. But this does open up a lot of doors, and this does allow me to film a lot more in public. So would recommend this, as I've already said a bunch of times. Wouldn't recommend this, the lav mic that is, unless you're on a tight budget. This was, like I already said, about $10, so it will get the job done. I also, and I don't have these right now, but I also did buy a couple of batteries, and that was mainly for the podcast, but I'm gonna throw those in here too. Those were about $20, and the reason I got them, because for the first year or so I had the channel, and even going into the podcast, so maybe it was like the first year and a half or so, I only had one battery, which was fine because I only needed to film, and if I knew I was gonna film, I would charge it, or if I say didn't charge and I forgot, I could just, you know, charge it and wait, and I'd be completely fine, and I never had any issues. But when I started doing the podcast, I really felt like I needed a couple more batteries just in case, because what if I forgot to charge it and I had a guest at my house and I was like, hey, we can only do this so long because the battery's gonna die. I felt like I needed batteries ready to go, and it's always good, especially in tech, to have a backup plan. So those are about $20 or so, like for the pair, which really was not bad at all. So would definitely recommend those, no issues. I really hope there wouldn't be any issues with batteries, but you know what it is. I also bought these lights that I always use. I always set up for every podcast, every single video. Those were about $50, very inexpensive. I've had people come over and say these lights are actually awesome. I really want to upgrade them in the nearest future, but I don't know if I'm gonna do it just yet. But yeah, those are about $50, and I got a really good deal on them on Amazon. I don't even think that bundle's available anymore, to be perfectly honest, because I've had a couple people say they want to buy them and they can't find it. So I think I just got lucky, to be perfectly honest, but really no complaints with those. Just want to upgrade and get better equipment at the end of the day. And the last thing that I've bought for strictly the channel, and now we'll get into the podcast in a second, is this Gorilla tripod. This was about $50. I think, I haven't used this yet. I'm actually probably gonna use it tomorrow, because I'm actually filming this before the intro, because I'm hoping tomorrow I have a little bit more energy, I feel a little bit better, because like I was saying, I was sick. So I really would like to use this tomorrow to film the intro for this video, but I think I'm gonna like this. It's definitely for like vlogging style. I'll be able to like keep it like this, and I'll be able to keep the camera angled at my face so I'm not bumping up and down, because I have a really shaky hand. I also think it'll be cool because I can spread this out and attach it to different like signs or different guardrails or whatever the case like that, and not like a traditional tripod, because this will wrap around those things unlike a traditional tripod. I think I'm gonna love this thing. This was about, like I said, $50. I know there's more expensive ones out there, but I felt like for me, this would be the best bang for my buck at this point in time. Oh, and the actual last thing that I have used for this channel and that I also use for the podcast is my subscription to Lightroom and Photoshop. So that's about $12 a month, I believe. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, and I'm not exactly sure how many months I've had that subscription for. So we're just gonna use it as a one-time fee. We'll say $12. Again, remember, it is more than that because I do pay monthly for that, but since I can't remember off the top of my head how many months I've used that exactly, we're just gonna call a one-time $12 fee. As for the podcast, I actually did just order a table, which you guys have not seen yet because it hasn't come in yet. It should be coming in within the next couple of days. So once I put that together, you guys will be seeing that on the podcast. But That was about $160. I'm not really sure where I'm gonna put it because my apartment's really small, but it'll actually be really cool. I'm really excited to be able to put that here and use that for the podcast as opposed to the current setup that I've been having. So that's really exciting. That was one of the bigger things I bought for the podcast. I really haven't had to spend a ton of money on the podcast, but other things that I bought, I also bought those original 2 microphones, which I don't even know what I did with. I have no idea where they are. The podcast where we first started, we were sitting on the couch where it was like, Nick was in one. I've had a bunch, like my friend Blake, the first time he came on, like those were the 2 mics that I was using originally. I have upgraded since then, obviously, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. But those 2 combined were about $85, I believe. I think I paid $40 for one and $45 for the other, or something along those lines. Not overly expensive, but I guess in hindsight, it was a waste of money because I don't ever use them anymore for anything. I guess I could try to send them back to Amazon, but it's never bad to have a backup plan just in case something goes, wrong in some way, shape, or form. Currently, I do use these 2 microphones. These are the Zoom ZDM1 microphones. I love these. I would really recommend these. These were I got them on sale. They were about $100 a piece, which is kind of expensive, but I love these. They are definitely added a lot of quality to the audio of the podcast. I would really, really recommend them. Obviously, I paid $100 for one. I have 2 of them, so that's $200. They also did come with these headphones. I feel like these headphones have been such a game changer for the podcast and really have added a ton of quality along with those microphones. Because for people that don't run podcasts, you might be wondering why you wear headphones. They make such a big difference. Especially for someone like me who gets really excited and naturally is not a great speaker and might start to mumble or might start to get really loud. When I can hear myself talk, I say to myself, all right, I gotta slow down with what I'm saying here, or I gotta talk quieter, just so that way I know for someone that's listening, it's not all hectic, if you know what I mean. And then on top of that, I also do have the Zoom H6 as my interface. I love this thing. Originally, with the other 2 microphones I was using when I first started the podcast, I was just using my laptop. This has done wonders for me. It allows the podcast to go longer because the battery will last longer as opposed to my laptop, because I can't charge my laptop as I am recording something on Audacity with the 2 microphones. This is absolutely incredible. This has added so much value. I would definitely 100% recommend this, but it was a little more on the expensive side. This is probably the biggest purchase I've made for the podcast. This cost about $350 or so, but it was definitely worth it. I would definitely recommend it. I was really skeptical at first, but my friend Zach really, really recommended it. He said he uses it for his podcast. You saw him on here obviously once, so go check out his podcast if you haven't already. But would definitely recommend that, especially if you are starting a podcast. I love the podcast setup with the headphones and these mics. Obviously, they're not like the mics like Rogan uses. I'm not exactly sure what those are called off the top of my head. I'll probably post those somewhere on the screen. Those are what I would like to upgrade to eventually, but yeah, would definitely recommend that Zoom H6 110%. And then the last thing that I have to pay for the podcast is I have to pay for the RSS subscription, which is what allows me to put the podcast on Apple Music and Spotify. And that is obviously more of a necessity. That's not something I can really get around because I need to upload the podcast to as many platforms as I possibly can, because not everyone's just going to watch it on YouTube. I'm not exactly sure how many months I paid that for, so we're, again, kind of like the Lightroom and Photoshop subscription, we're just going to include that once here, so we're going to add $12 onto our total. So the total for the podcast has come to about $807. Remember, that is going to be a little bit higher because of the RSS subscription, and I have not calculated exactly how many months I've had to pay that for. As for the total of the entire channel and podcast in one, I have paid approximately $3,364, which to me really is not that much money, especially since I've been paying it over a period of time. To some people, that is an extravagant amount of money and almost ridiculous. But for me, you know, I've spent that money over the course of about 2 years. I got a camera, a lens, and you also got to remember, the camera and the lens, that alone makes up like over $1,200. Like, I can't do the exact math off the top of my head because I don't remember what I said they were worth, but that is worth about $1,200 itself. So that's over a third right there. But purchasing all this slowly over a period of time and upgrading when you feel is necessary, I feel like is the best way to go. I don't really like the idea of just blowing money on, you know, top-notch, like #1 YouTube channel, Mr. Beast type equipment or software or whatever the case may be. Start small and upgrade over time. At least that's what I think. So a couple of things I really do want to get in the near future to upgrade the quality of the channel is I really want the Sony a7 III. I really want that bad. It is expensive. It's about $2,000, but I really want that. I could do so many cool things with that, especially allowing to be able to shoot in a higher frame rate. I would love to get that thing. So I've been putting it off for a while, but don't be surprised if I get that, because I also do want to get another camera for the podcast so I can have 2 different camera angles as opposed to just one and me kind of zooming in on the other person. I really want to get another camera. I really want that camera. That would add a ton of quality to the channel. I know that for a fact. With that, I also want to get the 16-35mm lens. That's also expensive. That's about $2,200. I'd probably get the camera first and then wait a little bit and then invest in the 16-35, but I think those 2 things would automatically spike the quality of the channel like 10 times over. The next thing and the last thing I really want to get, and this is actually something that could be happening very, very soon, maybe even within the next like week or 2, is I really want to get a gimbal. I feel like that would be awesome for stability. I feel like that would add some great quality to the channel, and I could really do a lot of sick shots, a lot of sick edits, because I personally just don't have a steady hand. Maybe it's because I drink too much caffeine or whatever the case may be, but my hands always like been shaky. Like if I have to do a shot like this and get it like really precise so it's not like up and down, I legitimately have to hold my breath, because otherwise I'm just going to be shaking and it's going to come out looking terrible. But I don't remember the gimbal that exactly I want off the top of my head, the name of it. I'll post it somewhere on the screen, but I remember it was about $300. That's something, like I already said, could definitely be happening within the next few weeks. Oh, something I forgot to include, this banner. This was $30. I love this banner. I really love it. It came out really well. I actually got it off of Etsy. I just went on there and I contacted someone. I don't remember who it was, unfortunately, but they did a great job. I asked them how this works. They said, send us a picture of what you want. We're gonna blow it up to the size you want, and then we'll send it to you within a couple weeks. It came out really well. Everyone that's come over for the podcast says it looks like it came out sick. Anyway, back on track here. I really do want to get that gimbal. That's something that could be happening in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to be the end of this video, guys. That is how much money I have spent on this YouTube journey so far. Again, like I've already said a number of times, this money has been spent over a period of time, so it doesn't feel like I've spent that much. And for those of you out there that are watching this saying that's a ridiculous amount of money to spend on this, just always remember, A, it's not your money, and B, there's a lot worse things I could be spending money on. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Hopefully you guys get some value out of this. If you're starting a channel, again, like I said earlier, make sure to start small and work your way up. Just don't blow all your money on the top camera equipment, because if you don't know how to use a camera, it's really not going to do you any good at the end of the day, or any of this equipment for that matter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.